People, this is idiots versus idiots. And you might be asking yourself, what is that? And we're going to tell you.
I'm not an idiot, Danny. Okay, yeah,
That's
yeah,
debatable.
I'm an idiot.
That's debatable. You just got done telling me how your wife gives you a schedule every morning. So.
Well, okay, in that category, I'm an idiot.
Okay. Or, I mean, I don't know. It seems nice that you have a system where you don't have to think. Somebody does all the thinking for you. That's nice.
Yeah.
So our show started, the genesis of this program started because Big Man, my colleague here, had been bugging me for quite some time to do over the air, like, a Zoom cast type podcast. And I didn't like that concept because I resisted.
You resisted.
I am the resistance because I never liked the quality that it knocked out. And we used to live in the same city temporarily. I've left. I am moving back to the same city because for obvious reasons. And I didn't like the quality of it. However, this thing called Dos Equis virus, which we can't even use because if I say the real thing,
right. Yeah,
they're going to put a dumb tag in. Just because I use the V word, we still might get a tag on the bottom of our thing. Special window. This is now the way of the world.
Let's just say circumstances has created an environment that made it more user-friendly.
Not just more user-friendly, more commonplace.
Sure, absolutely.
There are, Rolling Stone, Bloomberg, The Rising, The Hill.
Yeah, The Hill, Rising, all of it, yeah.
All of these major, huge companies are producing content in this manner because they have
to.
The
Daily Show is doing it. The nighttime, any of your late night shows and
talk
stuff
shows,
like that are using
which are all
the same
dumb.
technology.
All the Jimmys are dumb. The Jimmys, the James, they're all stupid. I hate all of them. Why David Dobrik wants to be one of those people, I'll never understand.
Those beliefs are all from Danny. Please email Danny with all of the issues.
I don't care. You can go ahead and email me at danny@upyours.com.
Okay,
I don't care.
What are we here to talk about, Danny? All right, what are we here to talk about?
So here's the thing. We had done, when we were in town together, we had done content like, movie reviews.
Yes.
That was enjoyable. And then we'd started out with what was called Big Man, Big Problems, or Big Men, Big Problems, because both of us wear the exact same size shirt, which is abnormal. And we later found out we had the exact same doctor, which was also weird. Like, we randomly picked the same doctor.
I'd forgotten about that. That's true.
Yeah, I know. And basically that we were, we disliked each other in a way, but we liked each other in another way. And we were also kind of like like one of those black and white cookies from Seinfeld, right? Like, this abnormal amalgam of very similar. But anyways, we love business. We love entrepreneurship.
Right.
And I listen to so many business podcasts, so many political podcasts, so many comedic podcasts. And there's one strain in the business vein, whereas you have the entrepreneurial podcasts. I love them. Okay.
Sure.
Bigger Pockets. It's about real estate. Entrepreneur on Fire. It's more internet business focused. They're all great. They're all wonderful. And then the other vein you have there is the Bloomberg podcasts and economists. Yes, exactly. If I listen to some of them, and it's like they have this NPR kind of vibe. And my dad used to drive me to school, and we listened to NPR. And
it's like
the
watching
only
paint dry. It's the ticker. Mm-hmm. It's the ticker.
Yeah. I would rather fall down a shallow Amish well and break my neck and die very slowly than suffer through the Dow Jones Industrial Average. And here's the thing. Movies like Social Network or, whatever. Entrepreneurship, Wolf of Wall Street. Entrepreneurship is this uniquely, I think, in this context anyway, is a uniquely American phenomenon, right? Of course, everyone in every country in the world is starting businesses. That's wonderful. But I think the way Americans do it is so unique and it's so different. As the children of immigrants, that is an insight that I think that other people might not have a perspective to, like to understand. In other countries, being a businessman or an entrepreneur is not this just, I fell off the turnip truck and I started a business. And it's so fascinating, right? There's so much of it I find fascinating. I find the culture of it fascinating. I find the branding, every aspect of it, because I'm a business guy. I'm addicted to the game, though, right?
Well, it's definitely fertile ground, right? And I
Totally.
like that, addicted to the game, because I think I think what we want to accomplish here, and what we both, and I've been able to
I think we
accomplish
have two
through my
separate goals,
lifetime in
but
business, is through that right there, is to be a student of the game. And all the startup stuff that's out there, like you said, is great if it works for you, and it speaks to you, and it motivates you, and all that stuff. That all stuff is great. And like you said,
I'm not
there's
against it, okay?
No, I'm not either.
Don't misunderstand that. I'm not against it. I'm a consumer of it, right?
You got to start
Gary
somewhere.
Vee.
You got to start somewhere.
I love Gary Vee.
But there's got to be a step 2 and 3. When I wrote a real estate book years ago, and I went around and taught these seminars, and I would literally stand in front of hundreds of people and go, "Look, read this book. This book is fine, but you've got to also sit here and listen to the words that are coming out of my mouth about step 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 20, 25, and 30, because those are just step 1, right?
Right.
You and I want to talk about step 5 through 35, through 500 through 600, and how those make the difference in the middle and the pivot, right?
Yeah, and so our jumping off point is business and marketplace news. Of course, it leaks into every aspect of life. Of course it does, right?
Absolutely.
But and the other thing too is, big man approached me and said, "Hey, man." Listen, I have wild, and I wouldn't call myself an extremist. I would say I'm a radical. I have radical political ideas.
I'd call him an
anti-political ideas. What's that?
I'd call him an extremist. Danny's an extremist.
You'd call me a lot of things, but you're the one with the shaved, bald, white head, and I'm not. So, who's the extremist?
You're an idiot. Go ahead.
Yeah. And I was like, listen, that's a fine concept. It's an interesting idea, right? If you see the rising and other things like. Because we're friends and we're two dudes and we like to, cut each other open and pour salt in the wounds. And that's enjoyable to us as an exercise. But the thing is, like, politics kind of makes me sad, right? Here's the thing. I don't get up in the morning wanting to think about that stuff. Business, on the other hand, gives me wood every morning, like that. It makes me feel different.
Well, you know what? And I think you and I both agree on that particular aspect. I think, yes, politics and business kind of go hand in hand. And I agree with you 100% that politics can be extremely depressing down a rabbit hole. Where business in itself, you and I agree that is business innovation is opportunity. Right?
Of course.
And that's why, like we were saying, the student of the game means that there are certain principles, right? John Maxwell's 20 rules of leadership and yada, yada, right, that are kind of at the core, will always be true. But there are things that change every single day. I own a real estate company, and in real estate, you think that the world we live in hasn't changed how we've done business this year? And
it's wild.
If you haven't done business this year, or if you weren't innovating to begin with the last couple of years, how hard it was for that person to struggle through this year, and that kind of stuff. And that's what I think you mean, or I definitely mean, about a student of the game. You have to be, as much as possible, preemptive in these things. And how you do that, honestly, is about talking it out. Having somebody like you and I sitting here and talking about this stuff, coming out and finding that really weird, strange thing that happens, and breaking down why it happened, and creating a fertile environment for that to happen to you.
Totally. And the other thing, I would say is, like, whenever I see, I love when I say I'm addicted to this game. I really am. I treat it like Mark Cuban in a sense. I don't really care about football, basketball, baseball, any of the sports, right? I love MMA because I'm a straight man, but there's something about two dudes in their underwear rolling around that.
Second time you said two dudes, okay? I'm sorry for his feminist beliefs as well. Again,
don't
email
apologize
Danny
for
with
me.
all of your issues with his comments, but go ahead.
Okay. I love the sport and of business, and there are a plethora of sports-related commentary podcasts, and I wanted to address my sport, which is business, And I wanted to come at it from, and listen, I'm a huge fan of Barstool Sports. I just got done telling you I don't care about sports. I've never watched an entire football game in my entire life.
It's
I don't
atrocious,
even know.
folks. Believe me, I've tried to get him into it. He just won't have it.
So I don't care. All right. I love motorsports, but I don't care enough to watch anything. So the reality is I wanted to approach the subject of business. And, when I see a company like Slack getting acquired by Salesforce, I want to get into their head. Like, what are you thinking? Like, and I love to talk this thing out. And I wanted to bring a kind of humorous element to it, obviously. But
you want to bring the
is,
ESPN breakdown, the what we call sports related breakdowns, and we spend look, there are how many networks about football out there and stuff like that. You want to bring that breakdown to business, right?
I want to bring, when I say humorous, maybe a better phrasing or wording would be goofy, right? I don't want to take it so freaking seriously. I have a friend who dropped out of the 9th grade. I would guess he's a millionaire. I don't know, but he does really well. He's an entrepreneur, and he bought himself an expensive RC car, and he was playing with it at a family picnic. His brother-in-law goes, "How much did you buy that thing for?" And he's like, "I don't know, $2,000." He's letting his kid play with it. And he's like, "What if your kid breaks it?" He goes, "It's only money.
It's only money.
It's only $28 billion for an AOL chat room. I don't get it." Okay. Like when Facebook was doing $1 billion a year, burning $1 billion a year, and they had a $50 billion valuation prior to going public, I was sitting down with a friend, and he kind of knows business or whatever, he day trades. And I was like, I don't get this valuation. It makes no sense to me. Like, profit. If you say, hey man, we're doing $20 million in sales we're burning 22. I still like, okay, those numbers are starting to make sense. Like, you're burning money on innovation, but $1 billion and you're going zero. I don't understand where you get 50 from, right? It's like, I was watching these, I love Shark Tank.
Sure.
Which, by the way, is not an American show. As I was saying before, like entrepreneurship is happening everywhere. The United States of America had a thriving venture capital ecosystem, so much so that the show didn't do so well for the first 4 or 5 seasons. It is a ripoff of an Australian show called Dragon's Den, which was then ported to Canada, which is now also it's in the UK. And if you like, I'm not saying you should do this, but you could probably go on there and find an idea or two that hasn't been executed well, that has gone out of business.
Sure.
Repackage it, bring it to the U.S. and have a completely new business idea. I'm not saying people have done that, but they might have.
Well, look, I think that in itself is a lot of entrepreneurship. People repackaging what has worked successfully.
Nothing new under the sun.
Right, exactly. And that's why, look, news has spent decades doing this, right? They take information from other places, put it in easily consumable content, right? And put it on at 10 o'clock at night or whatever it used to be. And now you have people, that's what entire news media is. I think what you and I want to accomplish and bring to this show is our unique perspectives on how, why, and maybe learn something down the road as we go along this, right?
Of course.
With people. And I think, and obviously I can't speak for you, but I can speak for myself in that I will tell you some of the best learning I have ever done in my life didn't come from me doing what you would traditionally think. It would be me communicating and discussing a situation with random people and really intelligent people, or teaching about a subject and bringing it out and having people that know nothing. I've taught in front of thousands of people in an auditorium, and sometimes some of the best learning I've done, even on information that I was presenting to those thousands of people, is afterwards standing there talking to a guy that had nothing to do with anything before he sat in front of me, listened to me for an hour and a half, 3 hours or whatever it was, and then brings up an entirely new perspective. You never know where that perspective is going to, and then I turn around and use it the next time I'm on stage.
I want to just give you a quick example. My dad is an Indian man, and the trope or meme about Indian people is they like to negotiate. And let me tell you something about stereotypes.
I'm not familiar with that particular trope, but go ahead.
Yeah, stereotypes are born from the facts. They're born from truth. One time we were in a tire shop when I was a kid, Montgomery Ward Tire Shop. I will never forget this moment. I am barely high enough to see up over the counter. My dad negotiates a deal for tires on my mom's station wagon. And he goes, okay, so, $60 a tire, 10 for installation. Okay, times 4. And the guy behind the counter nearly falls over like a Pentecostal preacher shoved him over. And he goes, you just save, I usually go 60 plus 60 plus 60. He goes, times 4. I never thought of that. It's so dumb. The dumbest solutions, sometimes those dumb things that come from outside of where you expect good ideas to come from, which is the traditional stand-up way of doing things of news media, whether it's universities, whatever. The thingamajig.
I'll take that out.
Okay. Dos Equis has exposed how the inefficiencies of those systems don't matter. Like the inefficiencies of those systems
absolutely
can easily be removed and deliver sometimes a better quality product. So we're two idiots, and we're going to sit here and talk about business news stories. We're two idiots. We don't have $28 billion to buy Slack. We don't understand those Peloton commercials. But hey, when this year happened and that thing happened, it started making a whole ton of sense that you would have a screen on a bike in your house. So the whole time those ads were coming out and there's a comedian making fun of them, I'm like, yeah, this is dumb. But then all of a sudden, we're all locked in our houses and the gyms are closed. The McDonald's is open. The gyms are closed. I'm not saying, like, here's all I want to know is what do they know and when do they know it? Like,
right.
How did you know? You could take, what is the most expensive bike, stationary bike you can buy? What is it? Like $700? And you go 10x that price by putting a LCD on it, which what's a cheap, like an expensive LCD that size? What are we talking about here?
Yeah.
That's $100, $150. I can go buy a 56-inch for that much.
And I guarantee you they probably have a monthly access fee on top of that.
They do.
You know what I mean?
You pay per month. It's a monthly fee. I'm not, and listen, it sounds like I'm being critical, but what I'm doing is I'm being fascinated. I am fascinated because value is subjective, okay? And when I say I am a radical, I have these radical views about free market economics. I'm a huge fan. And I'm a radical free market person. And so one thing that I believe is there's no right or wrong. If somebody buys the Peloton bike for whatever it is, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, I have driven cars for 5 years that cost $600. That is not a joke, okay? My last truck was $1,500. All right? This is a bike that don't take you nowhere, and it's 4 times the price, dude. That thing was a whole truck. I could put 8 people in it and go to a place.
Right.
This is a stationary bike. You pedal, but you don't get nowhere.
I get it, but that is the epitome of what we want to talk about on this channel and through these.
Exactly.
Is because it's not only what did they know and how did they know it, but when does that opportunity strike, that lightning strike, right? Because they didn't know that Dos Equis was coming, right? And that kind of stuff, but they were smart enough to take advantage of it when they could. I think we'll be talking about this year for the next decade and how it changed the world that we live in even in entrepreneurship. Do you know how many businesses will be created on the back end of this, that will be created differently than they've ever been created before? And then listen, some of them will be exactly the way they were before, and why?
Yeah, and you and I are even talking about before we started recording a business we're going to start, and it's way further down the road, but I really do think the impact of what has happened this year in people's minds are like, I don't want to go in a building, like there's something about, just like, how is this going to change, for instance, food service, right? Or I think what we're going to see is we're already seeing the fracturing of the restaurant industry. Here's what I think. I think there's still people who want to start businesses selling people delicacies. They want to sell people food. And so I
Every
think,
day there are people
yeah,
that want to do all of those things. And look, I will. For the people that are watching this and really want to know why Danny and I are doing this, and Danny alluded this to earlier, that I've been bugging him for a while now about continuing to pick this back up. And one of these is this year, the opportunity of this year. I am one of these, like Danny. I like business because it can be a very positive experience when you think about it. And one of those is, I think that coming out of the other side of this is two things. It's an opportunity for almost every American to do something new in a different way if you choose to hang on to it. We know for the past 100 years, there are only in your lifetime a select number of real opportunities that come across that innovate, that really change the way things are done. And I believe almost anyone could leverage this year to do that on the other side. And that's why I wanted to get you and I back on this kind of podcast to talk about these kind of things, because that's the point.
And, Tim Ferriss said something very interesting during the last crash. I'm not calling this a crash. I'm just saying during the great financial crisis, he's like, listen, if you go to an employer or whomever and you say, yeah, the entire, what happened to me was, I was a mortgage broker. I was 17 years old selling mortgages. I wonder why the industry crashed. I can't figure that out. But he's like, if you go tell an employer, yeah, the entire industry crashed, so I went and started a business. The entire marketplace fell, the bottom fell out. This is your opportunity to go take a chance, right? Because let's say it doesn't work out in 2 and 3 years, and you gotta sack up and get a job like a good boy. You're like, yeah, Dos Equis happened. I got cut loose. I went and started. So I started a hustle, and I moved to Mexico or whatever it is you end up doing.
Mm-hmm.
No one's gonna care. Like, yeah, that was wild. Okay, because I tell them, the last time I had an employer, they asked, so what happened with this last gig you had, and why'd you end up going freelance? I was like, well, you know how that time was, man. It was wild, right? If you got fired in January of this year, you could be like, by 2022, you'd be like, yeah, Dos Equis said, no one's gonna remember it didn't hit till March.
Well, nobody's going to care. Do you realize we've created an entire generation now that, like you just said, 5 years from now, if somebody got laid off in January and they don't work again until June of 2021, you can be in 2025 and see that on a resume. Nobody's going to ask. Nobody's going to be sitting there in an interview and go, so what happened for this 18 months? Are you crazy? No.
Yeah. So it is. And here's the thing. I will say this much. As a guy who's had a couple of rough relationships with women, it makes you rethink, like, is this really for me? Am I just happier being a bachelor? The entrepreneurship, on the other hand,
he's saying it like it's his choice, folks. I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
So true, though. That is true. Listen, entrepreneurship, starting businesses, it's the only thing that can abuse me the way it does. It can treat me so poorly. It can openly hate me. It can openly despise me. It can reject me at every turn. And I just keep going, give me some more of that stuff, man. Put that back in my veins. I need some more of that good stuff, Like, I'm going down every alley trying to find a guy to open up his company. Like, see, I got what you're looking for, see?
That is an image I do not want in my head, but no.
It's there now.
It's there now. Thank you.
And I think, I listen a lot to, we both like Gary Vee, all these other people.
Sure.
Anthony Robbins, Tony Robbins, whatever that guy calls himself. He's a freaking monster of a human being. No, like literally, the dude is nearly 7 foot. His hands are
he's a massive guy.
He had some sort of growth on some gland on his body, and when it popped or whatever, it made him become a giant. And I'll never forget that Family Guy clip where they're like pretending to go to a signing or a book signing. He goes, Tony Robbins hungry, and he eats her. Anyways, off on a tangent. The one thing these people keep talking about is, and this is across the board, do something you're passionate about, right?
Sure.
And I love this game. I love the concept that you can wake up one morning and you could be an engineer. Mm-hmm. And you could say, listen, I'm an engineer. I make a fantastic living as an engineer. My old man's an engineer. But I really, really love cartooning and making children's books. And you can make a children's book. You can get it edited. You can put it on Amazon. You can go to Instagram. You can do whatever, a handful of different things. And in 7 to 8 months, a year from now, you could never be an engineer again. And that is only possible because you take life by the balls and you decide, I'm the one who's going to design life the way I want it. And that's the beauty of entrepreneurship. And that's why I want to sit here and talk about some dum-dum starts a gaming company after leaving Yahoo, which is an insignificant company in the arc of the dot-com era. And he says, the gaming company fails. And he said, well, we have this chat room that we use. And 6 years later, he's doing blow off of some chick's bum off the coast of Fiji because he sold it for $28 billion. I don't know if that's what he's doing, but if I was him, I'd be full Dan Bilzerianing it. And if he had a wife, I'd just be like, listen, it's $28 billion. You just got like, I get a week hall pass. I mean.
No hall pass. That's why he's single, y'all. Look, and there's success at different levels, right? There's $28 billion success. There's success. I know a guy here in town. I love the man to death, and I respect. He's not the sharpest tool in the shed, right? He worked for the railroads here in the state of Texas for 20 plus years. He was going to retire. This kind of stuff was not going to retire a very wealthy man. He wasn't old by any means. He just spent 20 something years working for the railroads and that kind of stuff.
That can be a tough job too.
And one day he goes home and he was just hating life. Like him and his wife, and he loves telling the story. He was just hating life, and he had for years and years. But he had continued to work because he was working for the state. He was getting paid a decent salary, retirement, yada, yada, yada. He walks in one day and his wife just tells him, you know what I mean? They had been together for that whole 20 years or whatever. And his wife just tells him, like, look, I'm tired of you belly aching. I'm tired of it. I'm sick of it. I don't want to hear it anymore. You're either going to do something about it or I want you to shut the hell up. Okay? Yeah. One or the other. And the guy, he said, he's like, I sat there and we started talking about, what is it we want? We've been doing these things. She was a homemaker. He's worked for the railroad, for the state for 20 years. He's like, we just started talking about it. And he's like, you fast forward a couple of months later, he quits his job. No joke. He quits his job, takes early retirement, takes whatever he can, what little money he can. They spend the entire retirement to open up a pizza franchise. They decide that pizza is what they want to do. That's what come out of the... Now, again, whatever. Okay? Now, you fast forward. This was several years ago. You fast forward. The guy owns like 18 pizza franchises now.
Isn't he happier, though?
100%. And he'll tell you all day long. He laughs and he still makes pizza. In the first pizza franchise they started here in North Austin, he still makes pizza in it because that's his deal. They cashed out their entire retirement to open up. And when you ask him, you say, well, why did you open up this particular pizza franchise? He's like, we tested as many as we could, and this is the one we liked. So he still makes the pizza. He owns like 18 of them. Way more retirement than he would have ever had. Right? And way more fun. And I respect the guy for just one day. It was, let's do it.
Listen, I respect anybody who goes, I'm going to send it, baby. I'm going to bet the farm, right? And that has, one of my friends who I was referring to earlier who, has a 9th grade education, is probably a millionaire. He said it's only money. One time, we used to be in the car customizing, not industry, but just the culture. Like, we love customizing cars. one day I decided to sand down the dash of my Nissan and spray paint it because I had read about it in Super Street. Somebody had done that to the Prelude. Needless to say, I did a horrible job. I'm allergic to things that smell. I couldn't drive the car anywhere because it stank like paint, and it looked god awful.
Uh-huh.
And it was awful. It was dumb. But let me tell you what I learned from that. I get up every single day trying to dig deep down within myself to find that kid who was just like, I'm just gonna do it. Right?
That's right. Let's rip it out.
I'm gonna bet the farm. I'm just gonna send it, baby. And that, my friend, and listen, I think one thing that I enjoy about being a dude and having friendships with other dudes is the best way we build each other up is by tearing each other down and saying horrible things about each other. And that is my personality. That gives me life. And I will constantly on this program talk about how Big Man has a neck beard, which he does, even though it's on his chin. We'll talk about how he's bald and how neither of us fit in frame. If we put the camera too far back, you won't even see us. The option is up here. This is it, right?
Yes.
But he goofs on me about that. And one time, and he thought I was taking it the wrong way the 7th or 8th time, and I wasn't. He's like, dude, there is nothing greater than that attitude of you just did it. And the times in my life where I have made such idiotic decisions, more often than not, where I say, I'm just betting the farm on a pizza franchise. I bet your friend's entire experience with pizza was eating it. Mm-hmm. And now he owns 18
He knew nothing
units.
about business. Again, that's why I said he worked for the railroad. He knew nothing about business or bookkeeping or running pizza franchise or sauces or making pizza franchises, dough or whatever.
Cheese.
This guy.
I bet you and this is not to disparage your friend. I bet you his understanding of cheese was yellow and white.
That's true. That's probably true.
I have my dietary tract rejects all sorts of dairy, and I'm a connoisseur of fine melting cheeses. Okay, I make a pizza every weekend.
He's weak.
But what I love
He's weak. His digestive tract is weak.
Very. It is from the region of the world where my digestive tract originates. It is not very good at consuming dairy. The point is, this guy has, with very little information on the subject, just decided, I'm not living this life anymore. I want better things for myself. I want better things for my spouse. I want better things for my family. And 10 years later, one could never imagine if you met this guy 3 days before his wife sat him down and said, you got to put up or shut up. If you had talked to him, you could have never imagined that in 10 years, this would be the guy that you're talking to. Yeah, I love pizza. I own 18 of these franchises. I drive my pickup truck here, but I got an Escalade at home. Mm-hmm. I live in a big house. I have all this stuff. That's one, like CNBC has a series called Blue Collar Millionaires, and I love watching it because it is a uniquely American thing. It's people with little experience, no concept of what they're doing, and it's easy to look at those people and say they fell backwards into money, but they didn't. They worked for it.
No, right? that's a cop out for people, and I really
that's
hope
a cop out for people who aren't.
We accomplished during this is to show some of that, to show the realization that some of these people really did start this in their garage. They started this in their basement. They started this in their living room or whatever, and then took advantage of an opportunity, learned from it, and took advantage of an opportunity, failed, took advantage of an opportunity, and just kept going down this path.
And this is full transparency here. At 33 years old, I'm really not where I want. I've not achieved the kinds of things I want to achieve yet, but here's what I do know. I wake up every single morning and I dig deep down inside and I try to find the kid who said he was going to rattle can his dash in his car so he could go to Cars and Coffee and be cool. It was not cool. It was garbage. But the point is, it takes that level of commitment to just, I'm doing it. Right. Mm-hmm. A couple years or a couple months before I was set to move to town, and this is a 1,000-mile move. First time I'm leaving a 15-mile square radius of where my mother came to this country when she was 16 years old and has lived in the exact same 15-mile radius. And that's nothing wrong with that. I think that's fantastic. Nothing. When I meet a guy who's like, yeah, I have like, I have a cousin she was, and she passed away, but she was married to a guy who's lived in the exact same town his entire life, went to high school, college, everything in the same town, has all of his high school friends. I think that's cooler than, well, I wanted to get out of a small town, so I went to New York City and I made it. That's, to me, is not as interesting as like this guy who has all of these connections and community. Sometimes they do these happiness studies and they look at like people in Tibet or like middle of nowhere.
Sure.
They're very happy. And some of that is like you stayed in the same place. Anyways, I went and bought myself a motorcycle. And my parents are lovely people and I love them dearly. They are the most risk-averse, scared of everything people. Okay? But you have to think about, they are immigrants to this country and all of the things they have achieved. Sure. My achievements are their achievements, my sister and all this other stuff. Amazing. Okay? They have reached and achieved far beyond anybody could have imagined, and I'm grateful for them. But I'm, at the end of the day, an American kid, and I'm super rebellious, and it's always screw you, Mom, because I'm an American, and God bless. But I'm just saying, I went out and bought a motorcycle. I have zero mechanical skill. I have the opposite of mechanical skill.
Danny and I have discussed this at length.
Yeah.
I'm the opposite, but go ahead.
But I take ownership of my deficits here.
Yes.
I bought a motorcycle that didn't run with money I barely had right before I was about to make a huge move, a huge transition in my life. I bought it because I wanted to ride around with my buddies because they had bikes. I sold it. I bought it for $400. I spent another $400 fixing it up. I had the upholstery guy put a pleather red seat on it. I put it on Craigslist and sold it for $2,000.
Good for you.
I called some guy. I'm not saying he was a meth head.
You're not saying that.
I'm not saying he was. But he showed up in the first original generation Chrysler minivan with the wood paneling on the side.
Absolutely.
3/4 of the van was held on with tape. Nice. Mostly rusted away. Pulls up to my parents' beautiful home in a nice, ritzy neighborhood. And he fixes the motorcycle, and I paid him in clean needles, right? But when I sold that motorcycle for a profit, after my old man, who I love dearly, he loves me, we have a great relationship, he's like, kid, you ain't selling that for a profit. I'm going to have to haul it to the junkyard with you. It ain't going nowhere. And I sold it for a profit. I laid those hundreds out on his dining room table. I laid those hundreds out on the table, and I was just like, and I put I had the guy sign a bill of sale.
Bill of sale, yeah.
And I put that on the table, and I laid out all this money, and I was like, and that is the feeling that I want to bring to this show. I want to bring that energy. I want to talk about our first episode, we talked about a congresswoman has merchandise. I can't live in this. I can't stand this. I can't live in this universe. But, we in that same show in our upcoming episode, there's all this amazing opportunity from the small scale to the big scale. And I definitely have some friends who own businesses that make $50,000 a year, and all they do is travel until Dos Equis. And but a lot of these guys, they just hop from country to country on 90-day visas. And $50,000 doesn't sound like a lot, but these people are living the freaking dream.
Well, and that's you realize at some point, or I hope you realize, and some people never do, that living and enjoying living, entrepreneurship, non-entrepreneurship, these are all choices, right? Choices we make. And I look, I've always, and Danny knows this, I've always appreciated his and my difference in perspectives. Danny is much younger than I am. He obviously has had a completely different lifestyle and upbringing than mine. I grew up dirt poor on a ranch outside of Dallas, Texas, born and bred Texan, and never lived anywhere else but Texas. But I grew up with absolutely nothing. Now, I'm a much older man, and I've accomplished a lot, and I knock on wood, I've made more in my lifetime than my parents, which unfortunately are both gone and have been gone for a while. They didn't get to see the fact, but I know that they would be proud of the fact that I've accomplished more in my short lifetime than they accomplished in their entirety. And they would be very proud of it, but it's because I've learned through this kind of process. It's what makes me so passionate about this. It's why I traveled around the country teaching about the book that I wrote and do these kind of things. And Danny knows this. I teach and coach and do these different things because that is how you accomplish these things, is by talking them out and learning from them and teaching them and coaching and sharing it with others and that kind of stuff. It's how you get to that next step. It's how I got to where I am today, where I don't have to worry about those certain things. My children don't have to worry about those certain things. And your and I's different perspectives, and even being at different parts in our lives, bring very unique perspectives to that situation.
And for only 2 easy payments of $13.99 and 1 complicated payment of $59.99, you can get Big Man's course, How to Succeed in Life Better Than Your Parents. I'm kidding.
Hey, that's what all parents want, all right? Your parents want you to be better than them. I want my children to do better than me. That is the entirety of what parents are, at least good parents anyway.
Yeah, so like my old man still like laments the fact that, I have a bachelor's degree, which like it was like – it would have been easier to pull my teeth out and get me to regrow teeth and like get a master's. But I joke with him sometimes because he always, he has a master's and my mom has a doctorate. And they're like, we expected our kids to achieve more in the academic realm than we did. I was like, you got a doctorate, lady. What's more than that? Like, what do you want me to do?
You know what? But that's changed with the times too. I would much rather, and my wife and I talk about this, I would much rather my children succeed entrepreneurially, financially,
then worry about going
happiness,
to school.
Right? Yeah. Than academically. Now that may be because of where and when I grew up and that kind of stuff, but I'm fine with them if they choose to go through academia and become doctors or whatever. If that's what makes them happy, that's fine. I just want them to succeed better, quicker, and have access to the things I didn't when I was a younger man.
And in a lot of ways, the resources we can offer our audience are our opinions, but what I want, and I think we're gonna wrap this up here, but what I want for you, the audience, is to laugh and to learn. And it's like that dumb sign that you see in a woman's house with the short haircut that drives a Ford Flex that wants to see the manager. It's not live, laugh, love. It's like, I want this to be edutainment. In a certain way.
I like that. Edutainment. Yeah. That's very good.
There's a talk radio host, he says, entertainment and enlightenment, right? But if there's the one thing that I hope we continue to drive home with every episode is, if you send it, if you just go for it, there's nothing you can't achieve. You can go from being a railroad worker to owning 18 pizza franchises. You can be a programmer who starts an unsuccessful video game company. You can be a bartender that becomes you can achieve you shouldn't want to be a congressperson, but
if that's your deal,
that shouldn't be a position. But I appreciate the hustle, and that the first thing, and there is no written path, if you walk into a bookstore when those existed, there is a shelf for every type of entrepreneurship. And each one says, one book will say, Robert Kiyosaki will say, leverage yourself to the neck and build a portfolio and take on a bunch of debt. Dave Ramsey will tell you, don't do that. Pay off all your debt, pay cash, buy real estate with cash. Guess what? There are people who are doing the exact opposite thing, having the exact same amount of success, and they're in there. And the thing about entrepreneurship is, the sport of entrepreneurship is, it's one arena, but everybody's playing with a different size ball. We're playing different games here.
Yeah.
And it's such an interesting subject. And I think if you listen to our podcast and you enjoy it and you have a fun time, the one thing you should walk away with is that if you just keep trying, if you just, my business, this one thing failed, but we had a chat room, you might accidentally fart out $28 billion acquisition.
Gary Vee says it best. If you're 20, you got time. If you're 40, you got time. If you're 60, you've got time. Right. And that I think you and I agree on that. But I'll also say ultimately you and I want this to be interactive in such a way that I hope that we'll have a segment coming in the future where we take. Look, every you mentioned Dave Ramsey, right, and Gary Vee and Tony Robbins. One of these things that they all have in common are either radio shows or podcasts where they take real life scenarios of people that go, "Hey, what about my situation?" Because that's where I think books and recordings and other things where they lack, Rich, which is why I don't have a half a dozen books out there, is because I think what they lack is your unique circumstance, right? That's where really the rubber meets the road, as they say, is how do you take this information about what we're talking about and some of these things and apply it to you? And ultimately, I want to get to a point where at least some of the time you and I are talking to our audience directly and saying, hey, here's where your rubber meets the road. And here's our opinions on that particular situation. Here's based on some research that we've done and some information we have and some things we can bring to the table. And I hope that helps you, because that's ultimately where you and I are coming from.
Totally. And, just to add this little caveat here, business and marketplace news is a jumping off point for all entrepreneurial avenues. But if you've ever heard, and this is, you and I used to go to this networking group. That's actually where we met. We used to go and, we would say, hey, what is your target market? And there's a particular guy I'm thinking of. And he would say, it's everybody. It's everything.
Yeah.
Listen, man, that you need to have, and here's the thing, that guy's product was for everybody.
Sure.
Right? But ultimately, if you focus on a group of people, and he was in a network marketing type health thing, and regardless, if I like your product or think you're a nice person, whatever, if you say your product or whatever is for everybody, it's tough, right? You need to have a focus. So that's, for us, we're using this as a jumping off point, a springboard to find those other avenues. And we're going to have that segment where we talk to other entrepreneurs and that sort of thing. And hey, if you want to comment down below, in the description, we'll probably have an email address. Send us your business ideas or something.
Or if you want to insult Danny based on his narrow views on certain things, then that's completely okay too.
What's that?
I said if they want to insult you based on your your narrow views on certain things like dudes and and ladies and that kind of thing, So
I'm going to reach through this camera. And I would wring your neck if I could get both hands around it, but you and I know.
That's why the neck's so big. That's why you got to keep it there, man. Nobody's choking me out. That's all I'm saying.
And listen, I always say, man, I'm kidnap proof. You 5-6 guys get me in a van. Hope you got reinforced springs, bro.
Right. Who's dragging me away? Who's dragging me away? Nobody's dragging me.
That's right.
All right, brother. That's basically what we want to accomplish in a whole short, just under an hour. But I think it's important if you're out there.
No, I forgot one thing.
Go ahead.
We are going to sell you people so much crap. You're not even aware.
Yes. So much. There's so much.
I was just telling Big Man right before this about a business that I'm starting on my own that we are going to promote so heavily. You people are going to get sick of it.
And he's going to share so much of that money with me. I'm just saying
sharing. I'm sorry. You can't just go, I've achieved more than my parents did in their lifetime and half the time. Now share money with me.
You can always have more, brother. There's a never, ever stopping. But yes, so expect that. It all boils down to this. The more you buy into everything that we're doing, the better off the content will get. The better off the content will get, the more people we can help, and so on and so forth. And that is the truth of this kind of situation is.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm going to close out on this statement. This is just me. This isn't Big Man.
I love it when Danny says, I'm about to say something. I'm going to say it, and I'm going to say, and I don't know if he cares or he doesn't care or if he agrees or disagrees, but I'm about to say it. So get used to those kind of statements. Danny says, go ahead.
Okay.
I'm listening.
I don't care about changing the world. I want to change my life. And you should just get the notion of, if you want to change the world, start by being a different person tomorrow. That's a choice you can make. And I'm going to start by, I'm trying to make money. I'm not doing this to change the world. I'm doing this to make money, man. I'm doing this because I want to drive a lifted Caprice on off-road wheels and tires. And I can't do that because I don't got the garage space for all that.
Danny's in it for the cash, people.
I'm here to make money, man.
Make money, people. I am a capitalist. I am a diehard capitalist with a heart. So I will take the opposite side of that. I am trying to change people's lives. I would like nothing more than for Danny to have his toys with a long laundry list of people that said, you know what, I got some information from Idiots versus Idiots, and have us a little sideline up there. The Idiots versus Idiots really helped us grow that business, make that business, create that thing or whatever. So I'm in it. If that
happens by accident, I don't care. If I get what I want, they can all go screw off. I don't care what happens.
So help us all, Danny. Help us all, people, so that Danny can have his, what did you say, risen Capri?
Risen. You're from Texas, boy. You don't know what lifted is?
I know what lifting is, but I don't know what risen is. But anyway.
No, I said it's a lifted Caprice. It's not a dunk, okay? It's not a dunk. Don't call it a dunk. It's not a high rise.
It's a dunk. All right. What? Anyway, that's what we got, folks. We appreciate you. We look forward to this whole process. Danny is much nicer than he, appears to be. So you'll enjoy it.
That is a lie.
That is a lie. I will not perpetuate it.
I'm worse.
All right, folks. We'll see you next time. See you on the other side. Please comment down below and let Danny know all the things that you think about him. We will see you next time. Danny, anything else?
Oh, I was just going to say, I mean, your head's looking pretty shiny today, man. Congrats.
Get the hell out of here. You're an idiot.
You too.